I thought I was cleaning out my in-laws' attic. Instead, I uncovered a crime against my own life. Hidden beneath a dusty blanket was a box, one I was never meant to find. Inside it, dozens of letters, all written to me. But none of them ever reached me, because someone I trusted intercepted every single one. And when I tell you who, you're not going to believe it. I didn't mean to find it. I wasn't snooping. I wasn't curious. I was just being helpful like I always was. Daniel's parents had a small leak in their roof, so I volunteered to help clear the attic before the repair crew arrived. Eleanor, my mother-in-law, said she appreciated it, even gave me a kiss on the cheek before handing me a mop and flashlight. Be careful up there, she said. It's mostly junk. She smiled. The kind of smile that looked warm on the outside, but never quite reached her eyes. I climbed the narrow stairs and pushed open the attic door. The air smelled like dust, cedar, and secrets. I began moving boxes, clearing space, sorting things like the good daughter-in-law I tried so hard to be. But then in the farthest corner, beneath an old crocheted blanket, I saw a wooden box. It wasn't labeled. It didn't belong to the storage piles. And yet, it pulled at me. There was something about it. Like it had been waiting. Just for me. I hesitated. My gut whispered don't. But my hand reached anyway. The box creaked when I opened it. Inside were envelopes. Dozens of them. Sealed. Worn. Some sealed, some torn. All addressed to me. Claire Whitmore. And the return address. Lucia Alvarez. A name I hadn't seen since my orphanage records. My breath hitched. My knees gave way. I sank to the attic floor, hands trembling. Because I knew exactly who she was. My biological mother. The one I was told had abandoned me without a word. The one Eleanor said had thrown me away like trash. But she hadn't. She had written. And again. And again. Each envelope was a scream across time. A desperate reach from a mother who had never stopped looking. I opened the first one. Dear Claire, it read. I don't know if you'll ever read this. But I need you to know. I never wanted to leave you. I was scared. I was told it was for the best. But I've looked for you every day since. My vision blurred. I opened another. And another. The handwriting grew shakier with each letter, but the love in them only deepened. Apologies. Stories. Memories. A mother trying to rebuild a bridge from ashes. But there was more. At the bottom of the box, I found replies. Letters written back to her. Cold. Distant. Signed with my name. But I had never written them. Don't contact me again. I don't want to know you. You gave me away. Letter after letter. Brutal. Soul-crushing. All forged. All in handwriting I knew too well. Eleanor's. My mother-in-law had not only hidden the letters. She had responded. Pretending to be me. She had cut my mother out of my life and then looked me in the eye, year after year, telling me I was lucky to have her. Lucky. I clutched the box to my chest, heart pounding. I wasn't just holding paper. I was holding proof. Of a betrayal so deep, so vicious. It rewrote my entire childhood. My name is Claire Whitmore. And that was the day I discovered I hadn't been abandoned. I'd been stolen. And everything I believed about my family was about to fall apart. I didn't go downstairs right away. I just sat there, in that attic that now felt like a crime scene, holding the box like it was the last piece of a life I never got to live. I kept rereading the same lines over and over. I tried to find you. I never stopped. Please believe me. I just wanted to see your face even from far away. If I'm too late, just know, I loved you always. Each word dug deeper than the last. This wasn't just a mother's grief. It was a confession. It was evidence. It was everything I had never been told. And suddenly it all made sense. Why Eleanor always said my birth mother was a coward. Why she told me that girls like me were lucky to be adopted at all. Why she constantly reminded me that she had taken me in when no one else would. She hadn't raised me. She had raised a version of me that served her story. And I had swallowed it whole. I had parroted her lines for years, at school, with friends, even in therapy. I don't remember anything from before I was adopted. My birth mom didn't want me. I'm lucky, really. I wasn't lucky. I was lied to. Carefully. Strategically. Repeatedly. Eleanor wasn't just a cruel woman. She was deliberate. She didn't just block the letters. She forged mine. She turned love into rejection. And she smiled every time I thanked her for saving me. The silence that raised me wasn't absence. It was sabotage. I wiped my face and forced myself to breathe. But something inside me had already snapped. Not in rage. Not yet. First came grief. Not for Eleanor. Not even for Lucia, not fully. I grieved for the little girl I used to be. The girl who looked in the mirror and thought she was disposable. The girl who sat in the back row of school photos because she didn't feel like she belonged. The girl who stopped asking questions because the answers were always coded in guilt. I had buried her years ago thinking she was weak. But now I saw the truth. She wasn't weak. She was silenced. And that silence had been weaponized. Downstairs I heard Eleanor laughing on the phone. Probably gossiping, probably glowing in her own delusion. And that's when something shifted. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. I was going to plan. Because revenge this deep, it deserved precision. That night I didn't sleep. I laid in bed next to Daniel listening to him breathe, pretending everything was normal. But in my head I wasn't next to my husband. I was still in the attic. Still holding those letters. Still reading the sentence that haunted me the most. I just wanted to be your mother. Even if from a distance. I stared at the ceiling until the sky turned gray. And when Daniel kissed my forehead before leaving for work I didn't flinch. I smiled. The same way Eleanor always smiled. That morning I sat at the kitchen table drinking cold coffee and staring at the garden. The same garden Eleanor used to praise me for keeping neat and modest. The same garden where she once told me, "You're lucky someone took you. Kids like you usually don't land well." At the time I had nodded. Grateful. Silent. But now those words sounded like a threat dressed as gratitude. Suddenly all the small things Eleanor had said over the years flooded back. The passive-aggressive jabs. The advice, cloaked in condescension. The way she flinched any time someone asked me about my family background. It hadn't been kindness. It had been control. Every gift. Every compliment. Every Sunday brunch. And it had worked for years. He kept me insecure, obedient, small. The perfect blank canvas she could paint her version of motherhood onto. But that canvas was cracking now. And I wasn't going to fix it. I went upstairs, pulled out the letters and began organizing them by date. I scanned each one, digitized them, saved them in 3 different folders. One for me. One for backup. For when the time came. Because this wouldn't stay hidden. Not anymore. At the bottom of the pile I found the last letter. It was dated 8 months ago. The envelope was worn thin, the ink slightly smudged from what looked like tears. "Claire, I understand. You don't want to see me. I won't write again. But please know. I love you. I always did. Mom." She signed it Mom. Just once. Just that one word. And it was the last one she ever wrote. It wasn't just a goodbye. It was a burial. I don't know how long I sat there. But eventually my legs carried me outside. I walked down the block in autopilot. Past the bakery. Past the bookstore. To the corner mailbox. I mailed nothing. I just stood there, hand hovering, wishing I could send something back in time. A warning. A hug. Instead I whispered to the air. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Not for what I'd done. But for what I was about to do. Because Eleanor had stolen my history. And now I was going to rewrite hers. The change didn't happen all at once. It didn't come with screaming or slammed doors or dramatic confrontations. It came quietly. Like a door clicking shut behind you. And locking. I spent the next 3 days on autopilot. Cooking, smiling, answering texts. Nodding through Eleanor's stories about her church fundraisers and her bridge club drama. But inside something had turned. I wasn't the woman who used to sit politely and let her dominate every room. I was the woman with evidence. I was the woman with rage. And I was learning to sharpen it like a knife. I began observing Eleanor. Watching the way she moved, the way she kept her world in order. Every dinner was curated. Every conversation rehearsed. Every story a performance. Her image wasn't just important to her. It was everything. And that's where I would start. I pulled out a notebook and began writing. Not a journal. A timeline. When she intercepted the first letter. What she told me that week. Which fundraiser she was preparing for at the time. The first time she told me my mother was a burden I should be thankful to have lost. Each entry gave me context. Each entry gave me power. On the 4th night, Daniel mentioned something in passing. My mom's a little stressed. Some of the church ladies are pressuring her to let them audit the last quarter's donations. I stirred my tea. Really? That's odd. He shrugged. Says someone sent anonymous emails. Probably gossip. But she's worried. My pulse slowed. Because I had sent those emails. Short. Polite. Anonymous. Just a nudge. Might be worth reviewing the last few months of accounts. Not everyone is who they seem. I didn't accuse her. I didn't threaten. I planted suspicion. And suspicion is the one disease her image couldn't survive. By the end of the week, an internal review was quietly launched at the nonprofit. Nothing dramatic. Nothing public. Yet. But I saw the crack in Eleanor's mask when she showed up to dinner with slightly smudged eyeliner and a smile that trembled around the edges. She was unraveling. And no one knew why. Except me. That night, I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at a photo of my mother I had printed from one of the scanned letters. Dark eyes. Soft curls. A smile that didn't feel like a performance. I'm not letting her get away with it, I whispered. Because Eleanor didn't just erase a woman. She erased a legacy. A lineage. And she fed me the ashes like it was love. But I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to make sure Eleanor Whitmore fell the same way she rose. Quietly. Elegantly. And with everyone watching. Daniel was pacing again. Not angry. Just unsettled. Like a man who sensed something was coming but couldn't name it yet. She canceled Sunday lunch, he said, adjusting his watch. Mom said she's got too much going on. I sipped my coffee, looked out the window. Hope everything's okay, I said softly. He nodded. But his eyes stayed on me longer than usual. Studying. Like he was trying to figure out if I knew something he didn't. I didn't blink. Because I had spent years being unreadable. It was survival. No. It was a weapon. I could feel the walls shifting. Not collapsing, not yet, but warping. Eleanor's perfectly curated world was creaking under pressure. And the pressure was invisible. Just the way I wanted it. At church, she started sitting further from the front. At the nonprofit, she stopped posting photos of herself smiling beside donation boxes. And online, quiet. No brunch updates. No scripture quotes. Just nothing. But it was the neighborhood whisper that told me everything I needed to know. Did you see that post about misused funds at a local women's charity? Doesn't name names, but those hashtags were suspiciously specific. Her name wasn't mentioned. But the shadow was already moving. One evening as I was folding laundry, Daniel leaned against the doorframe. Hey, he said. Do you think something's actually wrong with my mom? I folded another towel. I don't know, I said. What do you think? He didn't answer right away. And when he did, his voice was hesitant. She's different lately. Paranoid. Snapping at people. Says she's being targeted. But no one's really saying anything. Publicly. That's when I knew. Eleanor had sensed it too. The danger of doubt. Because that's the genius of quiet revenge. You don't have to prove anything. You just have to make people look twice. I waited until Daniel left the room before I pulled out the next piece of my plan. A simple manila envelope. Inside, printouts of the forged letters. Eleanor's handwriting, her phrases, her lies. I didn't send it anywhere. Not yet. But it was ready. Because when this cracked wide open, I wasn't going to speak. I was going to show. That night, Eleanor showed up at our door. Unannounced. Cake in hand. Smile trembling like glass. Can we talk? She asked, voice syrupy but strained. Of course we could. I led her to the kitchen, poured her tea, sat across from her. She smiled. I smiled back. But my eyes were stone. You've seemed distracted lately, she said, stirring her cup. Everything all right, sweetheart? I nodded. Just tired. We sat in silence for a moment, longer than she liked. She tried to fill it with small talk, but her hands kept twitching. And for the first time in years I saw it. Fear. Eleanor was scared. And not because she thought I knew. But because she couldn't be sure I didn't. It was working. The fractures were spreading. And I hadn't even said a word. It started with a comment. Just one. Buried beneath a Facebook post from Eleanor's Bible study group. She was pictured holding a homemade pie, captioned, "Grateful for another peaceful Sunday with my ladies." But below the hearts and hallelujahs someone wrote, Is it true the board is reviewing her finances? It vanished 2 hours later. Deleted, of course. But not before I screenshotted it. Saved it. The next day, a local account shared an anonymous blog post. The saint behind the curtain. When charity masks corruption. No names. But the details were razor-specific. Mid-sized nonprofit in Portland. Treasurer with a spotless reputation. Sudden pushback from the board after quiet suspicions. I didn't write it. But I didn't have to. The match was lit. And now the air smelled like smoke. That evening, Daniel sat down across from me, jaw tight. People are going after her online, he said. Reddit threads. Twitter rumors. Even our pastor pulled her aside this morning. I feigned concern. That's awful. Is she okay? He stared at me for a long beat. You don't seem surprised. I met his gaze. Maybe I'm just tired of people playing the victim. He blinked. Swallowed. Didn't respond. And in that silence I felt it again. Power. Because Eleanor's strength had always been image. Her control. Her calculated version of love. No. That image was cracking under public pressure. And she didn't know who to blame. She couldn't scream at the church. She couldn't guilt-trip Reddit. She couldn't write forged letters to the internet. And that made her dangerous. A few nights later my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Do you have anything to say about the rumors at the nonprofit? Your name came up. I'm a reporter working on a story. Discretion assured. I stared at the screen. Not shocked. Not scared. Just steady. It was time. I replied. Let's meet. In person. No cameras. Just the truth. The next morning I met her at a small coffee shop 2 towns over. She was younger than I expected. Early 30s, sharp eyes, no nonsense. She didn't ask for credentials. She just pulled out a small recorder and said, anything you share off the record I'll respect. But you need to know, people are talking. This won't stay quiet. I placed a flash drive on the table. No words. No dramatics. Inside were the letters. The scans. The fake replies in Eleanor's handwriting. And one video file, Lucia's final message. If one day my daughter finds this, forgive me. I just wanted her to know I tried. The reporter watched the video in silence. When it ended she leaned back, jaw tight. This is beyond fraud. This is psychological warfare. I nodded. She erased my mother. With a pen. And a smile. The reporter didn't promise headlines. He didn't need to. Truth once exposed doesn't need a megaphone. It just needs space to breathe. And Eleanor was about to be suffocated by it. At exactly 5 p.m. that Friday the article went live. The headline was quiet. Almost polite. Treasurer under review after anonymous tips rock local nonprofit. But the subheading? That was the blade. Sources allege financial inconsistencies and a pattern of emotional misconduct spanning years. Beneath it her full name. Eleanor Whitmore. Age 61. Treasurer. Church leader. Community matriarch. And suddenly, suspect. I was standing in the kitchen when I saw it. The sunlight hit the window just right. The house was quiet. I had never felt more awake. Daniel came home 30 minutes later. He slammed the door. Threw his keys. Marched into the kitchen. It was you. I turned. Come. Was it? His face was red, voice shaking. You leaked those letters. You sent the reporter. You're trying to ruin her. I didn't flinch. You know who wasn't ruined, Daniel? My mother. She was erased. While your saint of a mother wrote letters pretending to be me, telling her to go die quietly. He stared. His mouth opened. Then closed. And for once he had no words. You destroyed my family, he whispered. I stepped forward. She destroyed mine first. I'm just giving it back with interest. He left. No apology. No, I love you. Just silence and a slammed door. And you know what? I didn't cry. I didn't chase him. Because in that moment I realized. I wasn't his wife anymore. I was a woman he underestimated. Now he was watching what that mistake would cost him. That night the article spread. Reddit threads exploded. Facebook groups debated. Comments poured in. Wait. I always thought Eleanor was perfect. Those letters. That's twisted beyond words. How does someone live with themselves after that? Some tried to defend her. But the evidence was already out. Screenshots, handwriting comparisons, voice memos, and the video. The final words of a woman the world thought never existed. If my daughter ever finds this, I hope she forgives me. I just wanted her to know I tried. It played in the article uncut raw. And when it ended, silence. Because no one could argue with a voice from the grave. I received messages that night from strangers. She manipulated me too. I saw her humiliate a woman once at a fundraiser. She always scared me. I thought I was the only one. But they weren't the only ones. We all just thought we were. That's how women like Eleanor survive. By isolating their victims. By wrapping control in kindness. By making you doubt your own pain. But now the veil had been ripped off. Not with a scream. With receipts. 2 days after the article dropped, Eleanor finally stepped outside. Hair pulled back too tightly. No makeup. A pastel cardigan she used to wear when she wanted to look soft. But nothing about her face was soft now. She walked to the end of her driveway to get the mail, and for the first time in years, no one waved. A neighbor crossing the street turned the other way. 2 women from the church garden committee pretended to be on a call. The world wasn't angry yet. It was uncomfortable. And for Eleanor Whitmore, discomfort was worse than rage. Because she couldn't fight it. She couldn't control it. She couldn't weaponize it. Later that afternoon, a reporter showed up at her gate. Not the one I met. Another, bigger outlet. Holding a mic, camera crew behind him. I watched from my upstairs window as Eleanor froze, gripping the mailbox. "Mrs. Whitmore, do you have any comment on the allegations against you?" She didn't scream. Didn't run. Didn't deny. She just shook her head, whispered, "No comment," and stepped back into the house. But the camera kept rolling. The clip hit the internet by sunset. Title: Local charity leader silent amid explosive accusations. Within hours, it had 250,000 views. The next morning I walked into the cafe near my house. One of the baristas, a girl I'd seen 100 times, looked up and whispered, "Are you Claire?" I hesitated, then nodded. She reached across the counter and grabbed my hand. "I saw the video. The letters. I cried in my car after watching your mom's message. I just wanted to say, I believe you. And I'm sorry." I blinked hard, fighting tears. Not from pain this time. From being seen. For so long I thought my grief was too quiet to matter. But now the silence was screaming through 100,000 voices. And Eleanor? He was finally hearing them. That night Daniel returned home. He looked different. Hollow. Like someone who finally realized the pedestal he'd worshipped was made of paper. He didn't say much, just sat on the couch rubbing his temples. "She's falling apart," he muttered. "She says the world's against her." I didn't respond. Because the truth was, the world wasn't against her. The world was just seeing her clearly for the first time. And clarity can be brutal. He looked at me then, his voice low. "Claire, if you just talk to her, maybe this can end quietly." I stood still. Took a long breath. And answered with one sentence. "It didn't start quietly. And it won't end that way either." Then I walked away. Because I wasn't going to explain justice to someone who never recognized injustice. I knew what came next. The final move. The one she never saw coming. I pulled out a new flash drive, labeled it Legacy, and began loading it with everything I hadn't released yet. Photos. Notes. Her emails. The original letters in Lucia's handwriting, digitally enhanced and dated. And one last thing. A video I hadn't shared. The raw, uncut footage of Eleanor mocking Lucia during a private fundraiser 5 years ago. Someone had sent it anonymously. Her voice clear. "Some women just can't handle motherhood. Good thing society has people like me to clean up their mess." He was laughing. Surrounded by clapping hands. It wasn't just cruel. It was damning. And I was done being quiet. I didn't hesitate. No second guessing. No more waiting for someone else to do the right thing. That morning I sent the final video to the reporter. No intro. No explanation. Just a subject line. "She said this 5 years ago. You'll know what to do." An hour later my phone buzzed. The same reporter. Her voice was calm but sharp. "Claire, this changes everything." I didn't reply. Because I wasn't looking for validation. I was looking for impact. By noon the story had updated. A new headline. Whitmore caught on tape. Some women just can't handle motherhood. And below that a still image of Eleanor, frozen mid-laugh, surrounded by a room of women too afraid to call her out. This time there were names. Witnesses. Former board members. A volunteer who said Eleanor had blocked housing assistance for single moms because, quote, they'll just waste it on takeout and bad decisions. The article included a timeline. Cross-referenced quotes. Handwriting samples. The silence was over. And now came the noise. Daniel called. I let it ring. He texted. You're tearing everything apart. I replied. No. I'm just pulling the last thread. The one she thought no one would ever find. An hour later I walked into the same cafe. The barista, Sophie, handed me my drink without asking. There was a note under the cup. We see you. We believe you. She doesn't get to rewrite the ending. I stepped outside. The air felt cleaner. Across the street 2 women were arguing about Eleanor. One of them said, she always gave me a weird vibe. The other shook her head. I donated to that charity for 5 years. I feel sick. Eleanor's house, once decorated with wind chimes and flower boxes, was now dead silent. Curtains drawn. Car gone. No Sunday visitors. The pedestal she built for decades had collapsed. Not because someone pushed her, but because she hollowed it out herself. That night I sat at the kitchen table. Same place I once fell to the floor sobbing. Only now I was composed. I opened a folder labeled Lucia. Inside were her letters, her photo, and a copy of the video she never got to see. The one where her daughter finally said, I found you. I found the truth. And I will never let them bury you again. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was restoration. Of a name. Of a legacy. Of a mother's love that deserved to be heard. 3 days after the video dropped, the subpoenas started. One to Eleanor. One to the nonprofit. And to no one's surprise, one to Daniel. I found it on our front porch, slipped inside a yellow envelope stamped in red. Confidential, financial disclosure required. He came home late that night, pale and jumpy. They think I was involved, he said, dropping the envelope on the table. With the charity stuff. With her. I didn't move. Were you? He looked at me like I had slapped him. No. I mean, she used my name sometimes. For approvals. But I didn't do anything. I tilted my head. You didn't do anything. Exactly. The silence after that. He couldn't survive it. He paced. Rambled. Blamed the media. Blamed the church. Blamed anonymous liars. But not once did he blame her. And that's when I knew. Daniel was never innocent. He was just comfortable. Comfortable in a lie that protected his mother. That erased my truth. That erased Lucia. So I said nothing. Because when a man doesn't believe your silence is an answer. He was never listening in the first place. That week, investigators released preliminary findings. They didn't just find financial inconsistencies. They found forged receipts, hidden donations, and a missing $84,000 tied to a fund Eleanor managed under Daniel's name. The words co-conspirator and negligent authorization began appearing in the documents. Daniel was now more than a husband. He was a liability. I filed for divorce that Friday. I didn't warn him. Didn't give him the courtesy of a conversation. I left the papers on the dining table. Same place I once begged him to believe me. And then I left. Not just the house. But the name. Whitmore had been the name of my erasure. Of forged love. Of performative kindness. I walked straight to the courthouse and filed to restore my birth name. Claire Alvarez. It felt like breathing real air for the first time in years. The news followed Eleanor everywhere now. She had been removed from every board. Barred from the nonprofit. And the church? They asked her not to return. The same pastor who once called her a woman of rare grace now said, perhaps the Lord is calling her into quiet reflection. Quiet. The same word she had weaponized against me for years. That Sunday, the front page of the local paper featured a photo of Eleanor, walking out of a side door in sunglasses, her mouth tight, her hands shaking. The headline, From Matriarch to Pariah, The Fall of Eleanor Whitmore. And for once, the comments didn't defend her. They asked questions. They called her what she always feared. Fraud. And Daniel? He texted me 2 words. You win. I didn't reply. As this was never a game. This was a reckoning. And it wasn't over. The first thing I did was change the nameplate on my mailbox. It no longer said Whitmore. No longer a legacy of silence and manipulation. Now in clean brass letters it read, Claire Alvarez. I stood there for a full minute just looking at it. No music. No drama. Just breath. Just presence. Just me. The name my mother had whispered in her letters. The name she signed when she still believed she had a daughter who'd one day come home. And now I was home. That week I organized everything into a single file box. Every letter. Every fake reply. Every scan, every clip, every receipt. Not for the courts. Not for the press. For my son. Because one day he'll ask. And when he does, I won't tell him the story of Eleanor Whitmore. I'll tell him about Lucia Alvarez. A woman who loved so hard she wrote through heartbreak. Who believed through silence. Who tried even when no one made it easy to try. I'll tell him how his grandmother was erased and how her daughter, me, rewrote her into existence. That's what reclamation is. Not revenge. Not fame. Not even justice. It's remembering out loud. It's refusing to let the truth die quietly. I started visiting Lucia's grave every week. I bring her yellow tulips. I sit beside her and read her letters out loud. Even the ones that hurt. Especially the ones that hurt. Because she wrote them to be heard. And I would not let a single sentence be wasted. I also began writing again. Not just in journals or private notes. Publicly. A column in a local magazine titled, The Women Who Weren't Believed. Stories of other women erased by convenience, control, cruelty. Not always dramatic. Not always violent. Sometimes it's a soft voice that's silenced the most. One of my first entries was titled, The Smile That Hid the Knife. And yes, Eleanor read it. She didn't respond. But I know she saw it. Because someone left a single yellow tulip on my porch the next day. No card. Just a flower. Familiar. And I knew. The tide had turned. No more hiding. No more pretending. No more rewriting. My name was Claire Alvarez. Daughter of Lucia. Mother of one. And survivor of a war no one saw but me. And I came out standing. It's been almost a year. A full cycle of seasons since the attic. Since the letters. Since the silence broke. Eleanor no longer shows her face in public. The house she once held court in is quiet now. Shades drawn. Mail piling up. Her name? A whisper. A warning. Daniel moved to another city. He sees our son once a month. The man who once believed he carried the family legacy is now just a visitor. A name I've scrubbed off every record, every document. Thompson was never mine. My mother's name lives on now. Alvarez. Stamped on my driver's license. On the first page of my passport. On my son's backpack. On the spine of the book I just published. Yes. A book. Not about revenge. About truth. About lineage. About the price women pay to be remembered. It's called Letters She Hid and the Woman I Became. It doesn't scream. It sings quietly. It weeps on the right pages. And by the final chapter it stands. Just like I did. I met someone too. Someone kind. Someone who knows the entire story and still chooses to stay. We married last spring. A small ceremony. Simple. Honest. Beautiful. Our son walked me down the aisle. At the altar he whispered, Mom, Grandma would be proud. We lit a single candle for Lucia. And when the wind almost blew it out, I shielded it with both hands. As some flames. You fight to keep alive. And I did. I carry her voice now. Her strength. Her softness. Her stubborn hope. Every year on her birthday we watch her video. The one where she says, If my daughter ever finds me, forgive me. I tried. And every year I whisper back, I found you, Mom. And I never let go. Revenge is loud. But reclamation is steady. Quiet. Measured. It rebuilds instead of ruins. And that's what they never saw coming. That I didn't want to destroy them. I just wanted to become whole. And I did. Because the most powerful justice is living well with your truth intact.
If this story resonated with you, leave a comment. Tell us, have you ever had to heal without an apology? And what gave you the strength to keep going anyway? Speech balloon, you never know. Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Bell, like, subscribe, and share if you believe in turning pain into power. And remember, your story isn't over. It's just beginning.